Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. At the time of this recording, the Atlanta Braves are set to start game one of a doubleheader, just needing one game to get in. So hopefully tomorrow we have some good things to talk about in a potential playoff series in San Diego. Tough travel day if they do.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to have to play two games and then get on a flight to San Diego if they indeed do win one of those games. But today's all going to be about college football, pro football. Falcons get a big win over the Saints. So we got to start off with probably what will go down as I believe the game of the year. I mean, when you just talked about the magnitude, the rivalry between Georgia and Alabama that has developed, the way the game played out, the tale of two halves. Georgia comes all the way back to take the lead with 2 minutes to go, and then Alabama scores on the very next play. I mean, it was cinema. I mean, it's why you watch the sport. I want to start away. There's a lot of takeaways in this game. Good for both teams, bad for some teams, particularly Georgia. I think that the number one takeaway for me is we had all these questions about Kalen DeBoer and what he was going to be as a head coach. We were both pretty high on him. We didn't think, especially this year, I didn't think there'd be much of a drop off simply because they have the talent already. He had his boys as ready. And on the flip side, Kirby didn't have his boys ready. I was shocked by their early game plan. And I think they couldn't adjust fast enough because it just kept like the momentum. Like Alabama scored, got the ball back. Was there interception, 3 and out, whatever it was? The defense couldn't adjust fast enough for the way they were moving. DeBoer was in his bag. They looked unbelievable in that first half. And any questions you had about Kalen DeBoer being able to replace Nick Saban, I think you could put those to bed even after just one SEC game.
Yeah, this is once again a clinic by Kalen DeBoer. He's beaten Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian. We talked about it a lot. I like to bring it up only because Steve Sarkisian, before he came to Alabama, DeBoer had less talent than Oregon and Texas, and he beat both of those coaches twice, or for a total of 3 times. And he comes into Kirby with at worst equal amount of talent as Georgia Bama does, even with some of the transfers when Saban retired. And he goes out and shows you exactly why he was the number one choice for Alabama the entire time. There was never a thought about anybody else other than DeBoer. I think that you saw exactly what Bama saw in him at Washington when he's beating these better rosters with less talent. And when you give him the appropriate amount of talent, you saw what it was. That first half by that offense was so perfect. It was so perfect. And first of all, Jalen Milroe, there was a couple of moments where Georgia defended it appropriately, but Jalen Milroe is the type of player, he's so damn good that he's just going to end up beating you even when you have everything covered. You got a spy on the quarterback, and he somehow breaks contain. That's how good he is, and that's what great players do. But other than him just being an alien, Alabama did everything right in that first half. Now, credit to Georgia for coming all the way back. That isn't as surprising as I think a lot of people are making out to be. I mean, this is a Kirby Smart coach football team. And the first half was a very big shock for me. I thought Georgia was going to come out way hotter, way more fire than they did. But them coming back, I don't think anybody should be too surprised. The entire thing was amazing to watch. I don't have a problem with saying it's, if you want to call your shot and say it's the game of the year, I have no problem doing that because it had everything. It had back and forth. It had great plays, great mistakes, emotion, obviously the weight of these teams, which people keep saying it's not a rivalry. Bull crap. I mean, who else is Florida? Tennessee?
I mean, it is
Auburn. It's a rivalry. What are we talking about?
Best rivalry in college football.
What are we
now.
talking about?
It's the best rivalry in college football right now. Like, we can talk about the old school rivalries. Sure, Alabama, Auburn's fun. Like, we like the actual hate.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even Michigan.
All of Georgia's rivalries don't matter anymore.
Like
besides
Georgia
maybe
and
Tennessee.
Alabama, when those two teams play, everybody's watching. Like, I don't know the numbers, but I guarantee you they're going to be the biggest numbers that we've seen from a college football game in quite some time because those two are the best programs in college football, and they put on a show for us.
Yeah,
I think Georgia learned a lot about their football team. Carson Beck, we saw the two sides of him. We saw some absolutely awful stuff. We saw some absolutely great stuff. I mean, we asked for a little bit more of him. He showed that in the second half, but the mistakes that he made were in the first half particularly and at the end of the game. I mean, that ball just cannot be an interceptable pass there when you're going to tie the game on 1st and 10 inside the 20-yard line. I mean, that's just a terrible mistake. And there were just a few of those. There were even some that weren't taking advantage. I'm thinking of when they got the safety, the 2 plays before that, he threw it into a linebacker right there. That should have been a pick six. So that's when I was like, yo, Georgia, just run the ball. They end up getting a safety. It ends up being a big play in the game. But yeah, I mean, there were bad things. I think the way Georgia fight, you obviously have to give them a lot of credit.
Yes.
They obviously, they got a little shell shock there. And it's what we've seen Georgia do to so many teams in their home building, whether it's Tennessee 2 years ago, Ole Miss 2 years ago. We saw Alabama do that to Georgia, something we haven't seen in quite some time. How were they going to respond? Well, they responded better than anyone could have imagined and nearly won the football game. The two other big takeaways, I think you really just have to give a lot of credit to Alabama here. Jalen Milroe is the front runner for the Heisman by quite a bit margin. I don't even think it's close. He's a superstar. He was my favorite to win the award before the season. He's the best athlete on the field every single time you step on the football field. I mean, he runs the legitimately sub 4.4 40-yard dash. He was the fastest guy on the field, and he's become infinitely better as a passer. And DeBoer,
that's the biggest thing.
And DeBoer is only going to make him better. I mean, that's what DeBoer can accentuate his strengths. He does that. Ryan Williams is the first 17-year-old I've ever seen in the history of my life that I firmly believe he could go play on Sundays tomorrow and he would make an impact. I mean, he's a freak. And you know what's crazy about Ryan Williams is like when Julio Jones came in, you're like, okay, that guy's a freak. Like you see some of these freak 5-stars and you're like, I get it. Ryan Williams ain't like that. He's fast as hell, but it's deceptive how good he is as an athlete. I mean, the play that he made with the concentration for the big field goal in the second half of that game on that tip drill to himself. And then obviously the play at the end of the game, the dead leg he gave going to the sideline and the acceleration to just burn him to the end zone. Absolutely insane stuff from him. It was cinema, man. I mean, this is we were excited for this game. I don't think it could have delivered. It couldn't have delivered any better. I mean, it was amazing. And I think you give credit to both teams. And if you're Georgia fans and you're hanging out, we just can't beat Alabama. Well, listen,
you're going to get another shot. I absolutely guarantee it.
It's a 12-team playoff this year. I think you learned a lot. I think you have to leave that second half a lot more confident than all things considered. You have to feel pretty confident about how that game ended. The next time you play them, it's not going to be in Alabama. It'll be on a neutral site. So, and listen, I guarantee you, it's hard to beat a good team twice. Alabama don't want to play Georgia again.
100%.
So there's a lot of things you can hang your hat on, and it being a 12-team playoff this year is the most important. Now, I still think Georgia's got some things to figure out. Beck has to be better, and things don't get easier. I mean, they still have to play Texas on the road. Ole Miss is now a hungry team needing a big performance against Georgia in their own building later in the season, and you still have Tennessee at home. And I know obviously you're at home, but Tennessee looks like a damn good football team. So you still got to take business. You don't got to win all those games. I definitely think they're not as good as they've been in years past, but they have a good enough team, as we saw in the second half, to win a national championship. It's about getting better every week. Kirby Smart knows that as much as anyone. Spectacular job keeping his guys in it. They learned a lot about themselves. I think they'll be just fine. But overall, I think you got to just tip your cap to Alabama, tip your cap to DeBoer. For those, us LSU fans, you Georgia fans, we're in the same boat. We've been waiting for this Bama thing to die. It's not dying. So that's what we learned on Saturday night.
That's what I learned. I mean, this Bama, and listen, he's not going to be Saban because nobody will be Saban. But I think that Bama, the worst thing on this Monday, thinking back on it, is all those damn Bama fans that we are friends with. It feels like I'm friends with more Bama fans than LSU fans somehow. And, they're just waking up this morning all happy, go lucky, and they're like, we got another one. And I hate that more than anything. I want to revisit some of the things you talked about. Jalen Milroe, his ability I think what separated him in this game versus all the other games I've ever seen him play in terms of the big moments is he was hitting the throws that, of course, he has a home run ball in his back pocket a lot. He has a great deep ball. It's everything else. It's everything in the short intermediate areas where he's never been great. He hit most, if not all of those gimme throws, which in some, cases, it's like, oh, of course. That hasn't been Jalen Milroe since he took over last year as a starter. That hasn't been the case. And I think more than anything, he's doing the simple things right. And he's always got the home run stuff, whether it's with his arm or his legs. He's always got that in his bag. A couple more things. I think Georgia's offense is very clearly hurting. Missing Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. I think Georgia, obviously, the recruiting better than anybody in the country other than maybe Alabama. It's about time to start taking it a little bit more seriously on the boundaries. Your defense is still good enough to win national championships. The offensive line, I think, was still good enough. I think you're recruiting in the trenches, and that's how you build a sustainable winner. But if you want to continue, you need a Ryan Williams. You need a Malik Neighbors. You need guys like this who are going to be able to, when the deck is stacked against you and you have a guy like Ryan Williams who can take that play and win you the football game, it makes all the difference in the world. And Georgia just isn't doing it. They're not taking the receiving or anything on the boundary serious enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that they're not taking it seriously because listen,
they
go hard after all these guys. They're just not getting them. Like they went hard after Ryan Williams, just like Alabama. Unfortunately, he's from Mobile and he's a big Crimson Tide fan, and that's where he ends up. So I think, and listen, you lose Bowers, you lose McConkey, you lose Ra Thomas because he's kicked off the team. I mean, those are your three top guys last year. So I mean, but they made some plays. In the first half, they missed on a lot of plays. I mean,
Oscar Delpa's got to be way better.
There was a perfect
Oscar
pass
Delp
on the first drive of the game that could have changed all the momentum and been a touchdown. Carson Beck drops it right in his breadbasket. They dropped the pass, but I thought they played well in the second half. It's clear that they still have athletes there because they were making a lot of plays in the second half. But yeah, to me, Beck's got to get better. But hey, listen, it was a great game. A lot more to talk about in this college football slate, which we'll get to after the break, as well as the Falcons' crazy win over the New Orleans Saints.